Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video, we are looking at D-Wave Quantum. It is time for another update, and it is a quite a bloody day we have in the entire market where D-Wave Quantum did not get a whole pass. So of course, today we'll be discussing the next levels to watch since it has broken support, and we will of course have relevant levels of resistance that we need to break for a more substantial bottom to be in place sooner rather than later. Yeah, we could also go on the route of achieving a full count in this extension that we are seeing right now to the downside. We will of course discuss all about this, but before we get into the smaller time frame, I would like to go quickly through the larger time frame for any of you who might be new. And here we are tracking a quite impulsive pattern. We have basically a wave 1 complete, a wave 2 complete, and we are tracking the larger wave 3. Within this larger wave 3, we have still a series of 1, 2 setups that have formed, and potentially a third wave that would be forming within this area. In this wave 3, we are focusing on the fifth wave where we are tracking an ending diagonal. Within this ending diagonal, we have already formed the wave 1, 2, and 3, and we are still looking for another high against the $12.8 level at the 61.8% retracement. Now, other interpretations have been possible on this chart, although I would still prefer this idea for an extension against this last level of support in a fifth wave where we expect to form an ABC structure to consider a larger wave 3 complete, to have a full pattern and look for a much larger correction in a wave 4. However, if we break below the 61.8% retracement, we would need to be prepared for a more substantial top to already be in place. In the end, we will of course track the smaller time frame to get an early indication that the structure may be turning around, and that is exactly what we have been looking for since we have bottomed in the wave 4. Now here, we were tracking an ABC pattern complete. We didn't need any additional extensions to lower prices, and right now we are looking to form another low. We have failed to hold our relevant levels of support, and we seem to be following through in what is our white interpretation in an extension of an ABC structure. In this case, I would be watching for a 5-wave move to form to the downside within this area. Now, we had the levels of support to indicate to us when we should expect a failure to occur, and even on the 4-hour time frame, even on the hourly, we see that we have broken the area of support and we were consolidating around this level before extending into even deeper prices. In the previous video, we had provided levels of resistance to watch, and we were still looking for additional extensions lower on this chart as the count was not clearly full. And so far, we haven't even formed our larger wave 4 correction and the fifth wave to complete the count, which means we are actually still looking to extend even lower still within this wave 3. We had here a couple of resistance areas that we were tracking for extensions to even lower prices. One of them got broken, but nothing too significant, as the major one that would have allowed us to look for a more substantial bottom was only ending at a $28 level. Now, we cannot track anymore this idea of an extension higher, as we have nearly completely invalidated it. So technically it could still work out for this to be a wave B, but realistically, I wouldn't expect it. I would rather look for a more direct descent, for a complete reset of this wave 4 in yellow, and that is why we will even remove this idea from the chart. And yeah, let's even track this extension to lower prices, not within the ABC pattern, but within the 5-wave move to the downside in white. So here, we still seem to be forming an ending diagonal, which is why I want to bring up back this idea of a wave C forming. So normally, if we were to build a wave C, as we have on our white interpretation, we would expect strongly to form a 5-wave move to the downside. I could track this initial push as a 5-wave pattern. I could be looking at a 3-wave correction and an extension in a 3rd wave to the downside, but in this case, I would need to have an impulse form in this wave 3. So the only option that would really allow me to still track a wave C was if we only formed an ABC structure in this push to the downside. And while it's not necessarily impossible, I find it a bit improbable, so I'm considering that it might rather be the case that this is unfolding instead as a WXY pattern, in which case we could be getting ready to form a bottom sooner rather than later, since within the wave Y we only expect to form an ABC pattern to consider discount fall. Now be aware, once again, it is possible to track this initial push to the downside as a three-wave pattern in one way or the other. I won't go into all the details, all the counts that could work out. I won't even study the internal count, to be honest, as distortions are possible. And if we only form a three-wave pattern in this area, we are still under the risk of having an ABC structure and forming a larger ending diagonal within a wave C instead of a wave Y. As of now, I will focus on the idea of an ABC pattern where I will be looking to form a bottom once we have here the wave 4 and the 5th wave complete. But to actually even start looking for the wave 4, we need to bottom within the wave 3, which currently I have no signal of. Sure, internally within the push to the downside, I could find a count that would allow this pattern to be complete. I could track this as an ABC movement. Very reasonable, although I could easily see an extension still occur in this supposed wave C. So let's actually add an entire count for this entire pattern in this area and make it look nice and clear. So we have the wave C unfolding, and in this wave C I have here a wave 1 down, a wave 2 up, and I cannot guarantee that the current wave to the downside is not still part of a wave 3, which is why I will need to study the internal structure within this area. Now, I do also want to change the degree for this larger count. So, to remove the extra numbers from this area and focus on the smaller time frame. Once again, we have this wave C unfolding. In this wave C, I am tracking an ending diagonal. I don't really have any doubts about this. Within this ending diagonal, I expect to find an ABC pattern within a wave 1, ABC pattern within a wave 2, ABC pattern within a wave 3, ABC pattern within a wave 4, and ABC pattern within a wave 5. We can clearly have this count complete. We don't need any additional lows, don't get me wrong. But I am still watching for a potential extension as this wave to the downside is not yet complete. You see, if we form in this last push to the downside that we have here in the last, let's say, 10 trading hours, if we find a 5-wave move, we would need to be prepared for this to be an extension of the wave 3. If we form a bottom in this 3-wave pattern and we extend to higher prices, I would be prepared to consider the larger wave 3 complete, to already have the 4th and the 5th in place, where I would not need any additional extensions lower. Now, I suggest not to obsess over the smaller time frame count in this area. We should see quite clearly whether this is a 5-wave pattern or a 3-wave pattern. I wouldn't zoom in too much, but I would keep in mind the fact that we have here quite a large wave 2 correction compared to what we had within a wave 4 in this area. This is kind of suggesting that we might actually be witnessing an extension of the wave 3 instead. Now, in terms of resistance, if we consider the larger wave 3 to be complete, which is the main area of resistance we will be tracking, we are looking here at the levels between the 23.6% retracement, the $21.2, all the way up to the 61.8% retracement, the $25.8 level. Above the 61.8% retracement would be a strong signal that this structure has formed a quite substantial bottom and that I cannot really even track an extension within this pattern to the downside. And distortion or not, we should start looking with more likelihood either for a reset of the wave X or potentially the next wave to the upside, where technically this wave 4 could still be salvaged. Now, in terms of support, we have this previous swing low that we were tracking as a potential wave 4 bottom. This was going to provide structural support in most cases. It has allowed us to slow down in this push to the downside. We are still very much within this area, but keep in mind, if we break below the bottom in this wave 4 at the $18.5 level, we would not be able to consider that this is the wave 4 bottom anymore. We would need to look with no doubt for a reset and continuation to the upside from this area instead. Now, before we end the video, we could be looking for a couple of additional key ideas. Firstly, the ideal target for the wave Y. I would be watching the 100% extension of the wave W. That would be at around the $12.9 level. That is very much in line with the 61.8% retracement we have for our larger time frame support, where this is an ideal target. We don't need to get there, but I wouldn't be surprised if we do. Now, considering the internal structure we have within this area, and let me actually remove this larger pattern just to have more clarity, but based on the internal structure we have in this supposed wave C, I would expect to form a bottom before we actually reach it. We do have some additional structural support here at the levels between the $16.5 down to even the $13.5. Yeah, these could come in useful if we get to those levels. Now, before we actually get an initial 5-way move to the upside or we get a break above the $25.6, I do not really have a strong signal that we have formed a more substantial bottom. And additionally, I can provide you internal levels of resistance you could watch for this extension to lower prices. So if we go here in the 15-minute time frame, ideally this forms something like an A, B, C pattern in this area where this would be a 1, 2, third, fourth, and the fifth. Ideally, we form a fourth and a fifth to complete this wave 5. Now, the thing is, we could be forming at the same time a 1, 2, third, fourth, and the fifth in an ending diagonal in a wave C. This would be an extension of the wave 3 in that case. We don't want to see that happen, and we should be able to tell the proportions between the corrections should be apparent, which structure is more likely. And in terms of resistance, I would be watching for a wave C to form internally here to the downside against the 50% retracement at the $19.7 level. And I actually will reuse this area of resistance. And in terms of a 5-wave pattern forming in this area in an ending diagonal, I would be watching up to the 61.8% retracement at the $20.4 level. If we manage to either build a 5-wave pattern within this area, or to break the level of resistance at the 61.8% retracement, it would be a good signal that a more substantial bottom would have formed in a 5th wave in this area, yeah? Keep in mind, we could form an early bottom. I don't absolutely need to get here a 4th and a 5th. It's not a necessity. After all, it's within an extremely small time frame. But certainly, from an RSI perspective, we do see some divergences, yeah? Probably even here on the 1-hour time frame, where it is possible to have a bottom in place in a wave 3 and have this as a 5th wave, yeah? Very much in play. I'm waiting for the signals. I'm waiting for the structures that I mentioned to you just now to be complete before I make a judgment call on this. But for now, these are the levels. This is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover. And I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.